Let not your heart be troubled. You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast. So like many of you, I have trouble sleeping. I have insomnia. No matter what I tried, it wouldn't work until I met Mike Lindell, and I got my very own MyPillow. It has changed my life. What makes MyPillow so different is MyPillow's patented adjustable fill. In other words, you can adjust the patented fill to your exact individual needs so you get the support you need and want to help you get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer. Just go to MyPillow.com or call 1-800-919-6090. Remember, use the promo code Hannity. When you do, Mike Lindell will give you his best offer ever. Buy one pillow and get another one absolutely free. MyPillow, made in the USA, 10-year unconditional warranty, and it has a 60-day, no-questions-asked money-back guarantee. You have nothing to lose. So it's time for you to start getting the quality of sleep that you've been wanting and we need. Just go to MyPillow.com or call 800-919-6090, promo code Hannity. Take advantage of Mike's special 2-for-1 offer. MyPillow.com, promo code Hannity. All right, happy Monday. Wow, the 25th Amendment, Russia-Trump collusion didn't work. Let's move to, the conservatives hate law enforcement. What a joke that narrative was for a short period of time. Now we've got to move to the 25th Amendment, and that's where everybody is headed. Anyway, glad you are with us. We're loaded up today, and everybody in the media ignoring two major stories. Yeah, the Clinton Foundation is under now an investigation for months, and that the Hillary Clinton email server scandal is back in play, and the fact that it was rigged and the fix was in, just like it was against poor Bernie Sanders, doesn't seem to matter. By the way, has anyone noticed WikiLeaks? There's got to be something percolating out there with WikiLeaks, because I'm just feeling it. I don't have any inside knowledge at this moment, but I'm sensing that something big is probably on the horizon. So tick-tock to all of the people that follow at WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. Did you notice on his own Twitter handle, he used to have a diamond, and that was his personal account. The diamond is now changed to an hourglass, counting down time. The time for what? Now, you might say, Hannity, you're reading too deep into these things. I don't know. I mean, I think the revelation of the Hillary Clinton emails and our interviews with Julian were extremely enlightening, that there's something going on that I can't quite get to the bottom of. We are in full, complete, this president, the 25th Amendment, which is now the mantra. What did I say last week? I said the media are like drug addicts, and they all need their fix every day. They can't rely on Trump-Russia collusion anymore because the narrative's blowing up in their face and boomeranging back all over Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. And the boomerang is going to be bigger and stronger than anybody has predicted, except for me and a few of us that have actually been digging deeper and deeper into the Clinton Foundation, into Uranium One, into the dossier, into the email fix that was in with Comey and Peter Strzok, and how they rigged that, just like they tried to rig the election. So they need a new narrative. And the big talking point, big narrative, is somehow they're ignoring all the factual errors in Michael Wolff's book. And even though Michael himself even acknowledges and admits that it may not be wrong. And I mean, he's literally out there, saying and suggesting here is that he alone is going to be responsible for bringing the end of the Trump presidency. He said it on the BBC on Saturday in a radio interview. Listen to that.
Do you believe that anything in the book will actually change the chances of the allegations of collusion with Russia being found to be true and therefore leading to the impeachment of the president?
I think one of the interesting effects of the book so far is a very clear emperor has no clothes effect. That the story that I've told seems to present this presidency in such a way that it says he can't do this job. The emperor has no clothes. And suddenly, everywhere, people are going, oh my God, it's true. He has no clothes. That's the background to the perception and the understanding that we'll finally end this, that we'll end this presidency.
Now the talking point, and let me just play a short montage. It could be a lot longer. Now they want to talk about the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Now, it was all right when Obama was literally pretty much shredding the Constitution, doing things that he himself acknowledged. I can't do these things by executive fiat as it relates to immigration, and we have him dozens of times saying it, and then he does it anyway. Nobody seemed to care about that unconstitutional action at the time. Nobody questioned his fitness for office at the time. By every objective measure, we spent a good part of last week laying out for you all of the president's successes, which were extensive and exhaustive, profound, deep changes to how this country is governed, from everything from getting rid of 20 regulations to every new one that they bring on board, to opening up and saving the coal industry, literally, to opening up ANWR, to opening up drilling off the coasts of the East Coast and the West Coast and in the Gulf of this country. Saving the coal industry was a massive, executive order and opportunity for the president. Forget about a 2-year low of Americans on food stamps. 2 million fewer people are on food stamps. 2 million fewer people. 2 million more Americans are at work. The best labor participation rate we've had since before Obama. The best GDP growth we've had for 2 quarters since Bush. We have more. The consumer confidence is roaring, and 2 million jobs created. And that's just the beginning, because the president's tax cut plan hasn't even taken impact. And it's going to weigh in heavily. But if you listen to the media, they found a new savior. I always said Obama was the anointed one. If you listen to every liberal today, it's Oprah Winfrey should just be appointed president tomorrow. Because the 25th Amendment allows cabinet members to get rid of the president of the United States and his fitness for office. Well, the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution deals with succession to the presidency and establishes procedures for filling a vacancy in the office and the office of the vice president, as well as responding to presidential disabilities. And it's superseding what was felt was a more ambiguous wording of Article 2, Section 1, Clause 6 of the Constitution, which at that point didn't expressly state whether the vice president becomes the president or the acting president if a president dies, resigns, or is removed for office or incapacitated. Yeah, okay. Now, this is the latest effort to delegitimize and overthrow a duly elected president, not by any objective measure. You have Joe Scarborough's angry that the Washington Post wouldn't allow him to cite a source that says the president has dementia. Well, I've talked to the president enough in the last year that I can tell you his faculties are as sharp or frankly sharper than they've ever been. It's actually an amazing thing about this president that nobody would talk about, his capacity to dig down deep and understand. In other words, you don't come from a government background. His ability to dig down and understand the process and his growth trajectory has been, frankly, phenomenal and not talked about. That means it's everything from communication to understanding policy, the law, the Constitution, and everything in between. He understands the office, and he embraces it with a work ethic that's second to none because he never stops working. Not a big sleeper either. Anyway, so you got a guy by the name of Michael Wolff. He writes a book. He even says, well, these are as I perceive them to be true. It's a guy that admits fully that he says the White House staff brings up the possibility of removing Trump under the 25th Amendment. Okay, I've talked to, and have talked all throughout the year. Never heard it a single time. The only people that are bringing it up is this little bubble universe known as the Destroy Trump media. They're the only ones that say it. He's not going to succeed. His presidency is worse than everybody thought. No, actually the opposite is true. The one thing Trump doesn't get criticized about are the policies and the statistics he keeps bringing up. And he said that, Trump becoming president shouldn't have happened, exposes weakness in our system. No, it actually exposed the strength of understanding what the Electoral College is all about. And then he finally goes on and finally just comes out and says and admits, my book will finally end the Trump presidency. Well, it sounds to me like Wolff had an agenda from the get-go, and he wanted to put in as much damage as he possibly could. And then he admits he didn't interview key figures that are quoted in his book. He literally went on to say and admit that he didn't interview the vice president or any cabinet members for this book.
Did you speak with any members of the president's cabinet for this book?
I did not.
You did not?
I did not.
And did you speak with the vice president?
I did not.
When was the last time you spoke with the president for this book?
You know, as I've said all along here, and the White House seems very focused on this, and I've spent about 3 hours talking to the president over the course of the campaign, the transition, and in the White House. But the important point I want to make is that this book is not about my impression of the president. I came into this with no agenda.
I don't believe it for a second. My book will end the Trump presidency. Oh, okay. The media treats Trump, like the worst person that ever lived. The media is at war with Trump, and they have been trying and continue to try to take him down. If you don't believe it and you don't believe they're sheep, just listen to this montage of the media and Democrats again and again and again, just on cue, on talking point, on message about the 25th Amendment, because
Sources
Russia's dead.
Describe the president in that Vanity Fair article as unraveling, increasingly unfocused, and consumed by dark moods. And so what's the likelihood, I think it's pretty remote, of that becoming the implementation of the 25th Amendment to the Constitution?
I started talking about the 25th Amendment 2 weeks into the Trump presidency, when it had become painfully clear that by any previous behavioral standard applied to the presidency, Donald Trump was unfit to serve. The 25th Amendment allows for the removal of a president who is, quote, unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office.
I think not an exaggeration and not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable to say this is 25th Amendment kind of stuff. This is,
did anybody say that in the West Wing to you?
All the time.
25th Amendment. They would bring up the 25th Amendment?
Yes.
And continues to attack Hillary Clinton, calling her crooked Hillary over and over again. He is psychologically deranged, and I think they seriously need to think about removing him under the 25th Amendment to the Constitution if they don't choose to impeach him.
Well, I've been speaking out about the invocation of the 25th Amendment since early this year, because I do think the president is not equipped to do the job.
Yeah. Oh, not equipped. According to who? What's so fascinating is, does anybody in the media, have they noticed what's been happening here? Is that everything they have pushed is now turning out to be false. Everything about Trump-Russia collusion's not true. But I can tell you for a fact there was collusion. And that goes into the whole dossier issue. And for a year, I now know there's a reason why the Clinton campaign and the DNC denied any knowledge of this dossier and who paid for it. Because the dossier was full of lies, propaganda, misinformation. Russians bought and paid for, apparently, by Christopher Steele, although Fusion GPS or not trustworthy, deny it. I don't really take their denials as anything, because they've been fighting every step of the way. And they just want to paint themselves in the best light. But a dossier that full of salacious material that has been proven false, and Hillary's run DNC paid for it. And now there's an investigation into the Clinton Foundation that apparently has been going on for months, and an email server investigation now that we know the fix is in. And obviously Congress is all over the dossier issue, and all of the things we have been telling you about are coming true. I don't know, where this, they're just hoping this can be a narrative that they can keep. Democrats, if you want to run on impeachment in 2019, you go right ahead in 2018. That's not going to inspire anybody to go vote for you, except the people that hate Trump already. All right, as we roll along, Sean Hannity Show. All right, so we are going to be there on the State of the Union night. Louis Gohmert is such a good guy. He just wrote me if I wanted to, he gets a guest seat. And I said, Louis Gohmert. And I said, I'd love to, but I'm working in the area that actually it's a place. Jamie Dupree wrote an incredible blog about this, taking you behind the scenes for reporters on Capitol Hill. And, he's been on this beat ever since he's actually a little kid, because his dad worked there and it's like his dream job. And he said he works, a window well and in the attic. That's where Jamie actually works. And he has a great picture of the Washington Monument from where he works. And he's got the smallest studio with numerous TVs, sort of like a spaceship that we have here in our studio. I have 5 computers in front of me, 3 televisions in front of me, and I have papers literally loaded up in order. It seems like it's not in order, but it's pretty amazing. Anyway, the place that we will be doing the show is when the congressmen walk off the House floor, what's known as the Speaker's Lobby, and that's where they will come, for example, the night after the State of the Union, and those people that we probably will have booked in advance. Sometimes you do it spontaneously, and they'll come on just because they're there, is where we'll be doing the show from. But you're not allowed to have cameras there. You're not supposed to take pictures. And but it's a really nice place. If you ever get a chance to take your kids, you probably haven't taken them there yet, but it's pretty good. All right, we have a lot of other news. Look, I never dislike Oprah Winfrey one bit. I think there's actually something extraordinarily special about Oprah Winfrey. I think she has incredible capacity at human empathy and a heart, and I think she identifies in a lot of ways with, she had a brutal, sad, tragic upbringing. I see nothing radical about her politically that she's had in the past. And I know, all right, she supported Barack Obama. We have political differences here. And I think that based on what I'm reading and seeing among people, that Oprah Winfrey is the savior. She's the new person that's going to run out there and beat the country, beat back Donald Trump. I think you're reading way too much into her award-receiving speech that she gave last night, but I guess time will tell. I'm not sure she especially has, I don't know, I want to hear her opinions. What are they? 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. We'll get your calls in when we get back and the other news of the day, and there's a lot of it. And we also have some great guests coming on the program. Kayleigh McEnany is going to be with us. John McLaughlin, Doug Schoen, the pollsters, and Sidney Powell on the deep state. Straight ahead. All right, 25 till the top of the hour. 800-941-SEAN. I guess now Steve Bannon saying that Donald Trump Jr. is a patriot and he didn't commit treason. And I guess now that Steve Bannon will be out of favor once again with the mainstream media. This is the same thing if there is a retraction by somebody in the media. This is how they play it out. They'll do a front page, top of the fold, New York Times, Washington Post story. And when they get facts wrong, which they do more than you would ever imagine, when they do get facts wrong, then if there's a retraction, then we're going to, put it on page 828. Unbelievable. And then we'll put it up. Sorry, we were wrong on this fact that nobody will see. They never do it with the same amount. They're going to stay and hold on to the Bannon original quote from Michael Wolff's book, a guy that, there are so many factual errors in this book. And I've told you last week what it says at the beginning of the book. It's not actually all true. This is just my perceptions of what I think might have happened, but it may not have happened. And I know stories in this book, just haven't looked at the excerpts that show me that I know it's not true. I actually have connections at the White House. I know people in the White House. People talk to me in the White House. I do my own level of reporting. What do you mean? You're not a reporter, Hannity? Well, I actually am in many ways. But I'm also an opinion or advocacy journalist is a term that you can use. I love how he said he's not a journalist. Oh, I'm not a traditional journalist. I'm somebody that does journalism, and I have an opinion, and I'm honest about my opinion. And most of the media is dishonest about theirs, which makes a big difference. Now, I think the media is they really are hoping and praying that Oprah Winfrey runs for president. I mean, if they could right now, they'd say, their savior has come. There's no indication. As a matter of fact, NBC actually put out nothing but respect for our future president. They have a picture of Oprah Winfrey. Prediction, if Trump wins, Democrats will nominate Oprah in 2020. Takeaway will be celebrity trumps all and Kim Kardashian is too young. Look, I do have a lot of respect for Oprah. It feels horrible when you hear about her life and her background and the abuse that she suffered. I think it was inspiring when she said nobody will ever have to say me too again. But, even on those questions, you have to ask, well, what do you do now that we know there's an entire industry that is paying women to make allegations and they're paying off mortgages and offering $750,000 and left-wing groups and organizations that are raising and using money to pay women to tell stories? I guess some of the stories may end up being true. But, for example, if a newspaper or any type of journalistic entity ever pays for a story, I thought that was put in a tabloid category all its own and not viewed as journalism, so to speak. Anyway, so the left has found their savior. Nothing but respect for our future president at NBC News. And doesn't NBC have the Super Bowl this year? I believe it's them. I wonder if the president would ever do an interview with anybody in NBC News anymore. A person that should do that interview, I would argue, is Al Michaels. Al Michaels is smart. Al Michaels will have no agenda. Al Michaels, it would be just the right person to interview the president, I think, on Super Bowl Sunday, which they often have. And I think the president, if it's Al Michaels, I'd do it. If it's anybody else, what are they going to put Rachel Maddow in there to interview the president? Okay. Or Joe Scarborough and Mika?
He's going to wave his taxes right in his face. I have them. They're right here.
Yeah, exactly. Can you tell me about this page from your taxes where you paid $40 million in taxes? Well, that was the big show of the year.
That was a 38-minute monologue to nothing.
The 38-minute monologue to nothing. That's so funny. Anyway, but if you watch, everybody, Joy Reid is tweeting out, switch back to the Golden Globes to watch Oprah get her award. Never let it be said I don't respect the President of the United States. Okay. Then you have Humpty Dumpty out there. After extraordinary speech on Sunday, it's the obvious question for Monday's morning shows. Is Oprah Winfrey interested in a 2020 bid?
This is CNN.
Sarah Silverman, John Stamos, Bob Harper, everybody, they're trying to trend Oprah 2020. You know what the problem is? I look at all these names of all these so-called celebrities. I don't know one of them. Anyway, so that's the big push of the day. I'm sure we haven't heard the last of this. And but Oprah would have to, I'd be interested in hearing her positions on anything. Maybe the Democrats, if they really are going to run on impeach 45, if they think that's going to get them to the holy grail and help them win the election and help them take over the House and the Senate, I say more power to you. And I think Michael Wolff is somewhat delusional, believing his book is going to end the Trump presidency. I don't think that's going to happen either. In some other news today, James Mad Dog Mattis was asked about his concerns for 2018. 7 words he answered with. I don't have concerns. I create them. Uh-oh. That sounds like saber rattling from our defense secretary. I don't have concerns. I make them. That's like telling Kim Jong-un that, okay, you do anything with your red button sitting on your desk, the United States is going to fight back. I see that Jake Tapper cut off White House advisor Stephen Miller. I only read about it. I didn't see it.
The president's experiences, what I've seen with him traveling to meet dozens of foreign leaders, with his incredible work.
Okay, you're not answering the questions.
No,
I understand.
You have 24 hours a day of anti-Trump material. You're not going to give 3 minutes for the American people to hear the real experience of Donald Trump.
There's one viewer that you care about right now, and you're being obsequious. You're being a factotum in order to please him. Okay.
No.
And I think I've wasted enough of my viewers' time.
You know who
Thank
I
you,
care
Stephen.
about?
As Republicans,
Hey, Jake,
lawmakers call for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to resign. In a major reversal, Democrats are now coming to his defense.
Wow. Guess Jake Tapper, we know where he stands, and he actually thinks he's a journalist. My big question is, why did Stephen Miller waste his time going on a show? Why does anybody go on any of these shows where it's obvious that the network run by Jeff Zucker, soon to be scandal-plagued, best friend of Matt Lauer, why do they even go on that show? I mean, that to me is absurd. Good fight to explore impeachment of President Trump by shameless means. This is all, let me tell you what's going to happen. Nothing. It's like Trump-Russia collusion. Nothing. The only thing that's going to happen is they're going to open up investigations and things will turn around in ways they never imagined. They never thought that James Comey would now be the subject probably of some type of investigation because he wrote an exoneration of Hillary before he did an investigation, and he wrote it with a guy that has said the worst things about Donald Trump and praises Hillary, and a guy that was literally involved, Peter Strzok, in almost every single issue that came up last year. Alan Dershowitz said that psychiatrists and Democrats who are trying to impeach Trump for being unstable are like Soviet and Chinese communists. Well, I mean, I think they just talk in a bubble. I don't think there's any connection besides D.C., New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. That's their own little bubble and their own little media universe that includes Hollywood and left-wing organizations. And they just talk to themselves and tweet themselves, and they all think that they're all so smart. And meanwhile, they can be wrong an entire year and report things that are not true for an entire year and ignore that Hillary Clinton's foundation has been under investigation now for months and that the email server scandal is now being investigated. The dossier is now being investigated. There's going to be big news soon involving Debbie Wasserman Schultz and this IT guy and his family that work for her and the money that was paid to this guy, even though they knew he was double billing. And why did she keep him around? That's coming up also. But they still, when all else fails, they'll still say that, well, it's about Trump-Russian collusion. Well, Fusion GPS, it kind of does show that there was Russian propaganda that was used to influence the election, and it was bought and paid for. Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida says coming soon we'll be sending I'm with her T-shirt to Hillary Clinton's cellmate. And he suggested bribes were paid to the Clinton family charity to influence policy, that the foundation was, in fact, a money laundering operation. And he and others that I know that I'm connected to, and this is my reporting, they keep saying there's so much that is coming out, it's going to make your head spin. And that's why there's no more free pass for the Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. And it's interesting, even the Democrats, I think we saw this break in Donna Brazil's book, when Donna Brazil literally said she ran the DNC and she didn't know about any money going to Fusion GPS. And that was news to her. And that the Clinton team pretty much ran the DNC. That's why she found out the fix was in. And then she made her now infamous call to Bernie Sanders and said, I promised you an honest investigation. Here is what I found. So the clock is ticking on the Clintons on a lot of these different issues. It's going to be interesting to watch all that unfold. And I think everyone has put so much credence in the fact, why would the mainstream media ignore provable errors by Michael Wolff? Things that he says are fact that are not fact. There's so many of them, I don't even know where to begin. And he kind of almost writes that in the beginning of the book because he knows he doesn't want to get sued. But he's telling everybody this will bring down the presidency. It's not going to bring down the presidency. And I guess Bannon is not going to be talked about tonight because Bannon now said Donald Trump Jr. is a patriot and a good man and that he supports the president, that he made a mistake. So you have Democratic billionaires. They're buying up copies of the book to send to members of Congress. That's all going to get thrown out pretty quick. It just lasted a little longer than I thought it would. Anyway, the big fight, if you want to know what the fight is going to be, it's going to be about immigration. Once again, the president has asked for $18 billion so he can build 700 miles of wall. I think Congress ought to give him the money. And I think the answer to the question is, well, what do you do about DACA? What do you do about any other issues surrounding immigration? Well, I think you get rid of chain migration, number one. You can't have everybody and their families. I also think vetting needs to take place when appropriate. I also think that as it relates to DACA, I don't think anything should happen until the wall is finished. I think you because we know what happens. You're always promised spending cuts. And then all you get instead is you get the tax increase up front. You never get the spending cut. They never get to it because future Congresses never follow through. The same thing anytime you discuss anything involving immigration, the actual building of the secure wall or so people can't enter this country that don't have our best interest at heart. Number one, my number one concern has always been and continues to be, well, if somebody can come across the border because they say they want a job or they want a job, and then other people come across the border because they want to blow up an American city, well, if somebody that wants a job can cross over successfully, so too can somebody that wants to commit some type of atrocity in this country. And so too can those people that are bringing drugs into the United States. It's not bad enough that we have opioid epidemics all over this country. It's frightening. Every parent out there needs to be scared to death about the drugs that are on the streets today and the violence in some cities today. I'm not talking or including that into immigration, but when I did go to the border a dozen times. I did go into the drug warehouses where they have confiscated, literally huge, massive warehouses, floor to ceiling, drugs that Border Patrol agents were able to confiscate over the years. And they sit in this warehouse and eventually they burn it and get rid of it and destroy it. We can't have people that are willing to come across this border and bring drugs into the country for your kids and your grandkids, because it's destroying literally cities and towns in Ohio and in New Hampshire and in Michigan and all other places around the country. One of the biggest things they're doing now is they're targeting the middle class in this country, and they're hoping somebody takes one Percocet, one Vicodin, one OxyContin, and they get addicted. And then when they can't afford $80 a pill, well, here's the $10 bag of heroin. Try that. And you take your first shot of heroin and you're done. You're done. Most dealers will tell you they'll give you that one for free because they know that they have a customer for life, meaning your short life before you kill yourself, or, the few that actually get rehab and it takes. Scary. 800-941-SEAN is a toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. We have our pollsters, McLaughlin and Schoen, making predictions about what this year is going to be like politically. Sidney Powell wrote the book License to Lie, Exposing Corruption at the Department of Justice. This goes deep into Andrew Weissman, deep into corruption that does exist in the justice system. Also, we have Kayleigh McEnany is with us. She's going to stop by today. Is it really conservatism, or is it something different? Nationalism, populism. I'm a conservative. I've never changed my political views. 25th Amendment. Really? Meanwhile, we've had the most successful year than we've had in 8+ under the president. Every single imaginable economic figure has been reversed. We have the biggest pushback of government regulation ever. Oh, and by the way, we've opened up the possibility of millions of high-paying career jobs in the energy sector. That means coal. That means fracking. That means drilling. That means ANWR. Means it all. And by the way, we won't have to beg countries that hate us. Oh, and yeah, we don't have a president that's bribing dictators. He's standing up to them. I guess to the mind of the liberal left, oh, that's just insanity. We should be bribing them.
Mr. President, did you ask the White House counsel to ask Attorney General Sessions not to recuse himself from the Russia investigation?
100% proper. The story, by the way, in the Times was way off, or at least off. But everything that I've done is 100% proper. That's what I do, is I do things proper. And, I guess the collusion now is dead, because everyone found that after a year of study, there's been absolutely no collusion. There's been no collusion between us and the Russians. Now, there has been collusion between Hillary Clinton, the DNC, and the Russians. Unfortunately, you people don't cover that very much. But the only collusion is between Hillary and the Russians and the DNC and the Russians, and one of those things. Okay, any other questions?
In what way was the New York Times story off?
You'll find out, but the story was off.
Do you stand by Jeff Sessions as your Attorney General?
Yes.
And will Gary Cohn continue to remain? If Robert Mueller asks you to come and speak with his committee personally, are you committed still to doing that? Do you believe that?
Just so you understand, there's been no collusion. There's been no crime. And in theory, everybody tells me I'm not under investigation. Maybe Hillary is, I don't know, but I'm not. But there's been no collusion. There's been no crime. But we have been very open. We could have done it two ways. We could have been very closed, and it would have taken years. But, sort of like when you've done nothing wrong, let's be open and get it over with. Because, honestly, it's very, very bad for our country. It's making our country look foolish. And this is a country that I don't want looking foolish. And it's not going to look foolish as long as I'm here. So we've been very open, and we just want to get that over with.
With all due respect, Congressman, aren't you contributing to the lack of faith in these institutions? All we know is that the investigation into the Clinton Foundation has started anew. There might be new evidence. There might be a legitimate reason. You are just saying your suspicion that this is being done because President Trump has publicly called for his political opponents to be investigated. And clearly, while that casts a cloud over the investigation, the president doing that that doesn't necessarily mean there's anything illegitimate about the investigation itself.
Jake, you really have to suspend disbelief to suggest that this is being done for anything but a political purpose. Look at the reopening of the Uranium One investigation. Look at the decision to lift the gag rule on this witness. Why is this being done now? Are we really to believe that this is being done for completely independent investigative reasons, that someone at the Justice Department completely on their own decided, hey, this is a good time to re-examine a 7-year-old uranium transaction? No. This is a response to the president's tweets, his admonitions, his badgering, and I'm not going to ignore the plain reality of this because it is going on. And as I said, you don't have to be a genius to see this, and you don't have to be a cynic to see this. The Justice Department is taking actions as a direct result of this lobbying campaign by the White House. And I think I would be derelict, as the Republicans are derelict, if I wasn't calling this out and sounding the alarm.
Well, I don't want to spend the whole time on this, but I will say you're asserting your suspicions as fact, and if you get facts to back up your suspicions, I'd love to hear them. But let's move on. A new report this week.
Jake, let me say, okay. I haven't seen any facts, Jake. I haven't seen any facts to justify the reopening of these investigations.
All right, Adam Schiff showing what a real, true political hack he has been. Of course, the year's worth of investigations into Trump and Russia and collusion, those are all legitimate, even though a year later we have zero evidence of any collusion. But of course, now that we know, because of John Solomon, Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett, and a few of us, now we've known that, the whole Uranium One Clinton scandal, as it relates for pay to play, has taken on new developments. Like Vladimir Putin, they knew 18 months before CFIUS ever approved, the 9 department agencies ever approved permission for Uranium One, and handing over 20% of precious uranium, of which we don't have enough of, to Vladimir Putin's agents that were known to be bribing and extorting and money laundering and doing kickback work here in America. Robert Mueller himself knew it. Now that we know these new facts as it relates to it, that wouldn't warrant an investigation at all. Never mind where the money went. Never mind that giving 20% of our uranium for Vladimir's control never made sense to begin with. Never mind the money and the kickbacks and everything else involved in it. So we're only supposed to believe the only real or legitimate investigation is now Trump-Russia collusion, which obviously has fallen by the wayside as collectively your corrupt news media has now decided that they want to go full force in the 25th Amendment. He's not fit enough to be the president of the United States. We've got to act, or maybe we should run in 2018 on the issue. But I'll tell you, the most profound words you just heard there came from the president himself, that he says there's no collusion, but there was collusion. No collusion with him, but as it relates to Hillary Clinton funding Fusion GPS, which hires Christopher Steele, which uses Russian propaganda and proven lies and misinformation because they want to impact the presidential race, and the DNC paying for that information as well. Yeah, that sounds a little bit like collusion to me. Anyway, 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. Here to weigh in on these developments and where this is all going is Sidney Powell. Sidney is an author, attorney of the book License to Lie, Exposing Corruption in the Department of Justice. Now, you have a long history of understanding and exposing the the great injustice that has taken place numerous times in the Justice Department. How are you? Happy New Year.
I'm great. Happy New Year to you, Sean, and to all your wonderful listeners.
So when we
do have a lot going on these days, don't we?
We really do. And as I've been saying, it's like unpeeling the layer of an onion, but it's even really bigger than that. I mean, now everything seems to have run its course with Trump-Russia collusion. Anybody that is exposing that James Comey and some top-ranking FBI officials may have been involved in an exoneration before an investigation, or anyone that talks about, there's not equal justice under the law if you get away with the many crimes committed in the email server scandal, or if you talk about the dossier, or you talk about the Clinton Foundation. But it seems now that there's no stopping these investigations. It seems like now the script is flipped here.
Yes, it is, because there never was a real investigation with respect to the Hillary Clinton email scandal or the Clinton Foundation. I heard in the tape you played earlier people complaining about it being done now. Well, it was covered up earlier. There never was an investigation, so it has to be done now.
Has there ever been a case where you can be writing months before you interview the main players in an investigation that was taken out of the hands of local FBI field offices and put in a special category? Is there ever a case you could think of where there would be a justification as it relates to writing an exoneration before the investigation?
Well, only if the Attorney General and the President had made clear, like President Obama did, that Hillary Clinton was not going to be prosecuted, because you have to remember he was writing her at that email address under an alias. He knew she had that server and that it was off the grid and that it was insecure. So he had to have approved the whole thing. And that's why she was never going to be prosecuted during the Obama administration.
Okay, now that we learned and we have the memos that were written in, April or May, this is long before he ever spoke to Hillary Clinton on the 4th of July weekend, and some of the other main players involved in this. It seems to me that if we do believe in equal justice under the law, that the Justice Department should be following this, shouldn't they?
They certainly should. Most solid Americans know that Hillary Clinton committed any number of crimes. I published an article for the New York Observer at observer.com a couple of years ago called The Countless Crimes of Hillary Clinton, and I lay out the statutes and any number of violations that she committed.
Including mishandling of classified information at the top of it. Isn't that a felony?
Yes, she actually is more than mishandling. I think mishandling may be the definition for the misdemeanor, but she actually committed violations of 18 United States Code Section 793, which is the Espionage Act, as soon as she received the first confidential information on her private server. And each instance of receiving that information would have been a felony punishable by 10 years in prison.
Understood. And then, of course, if Congress asked Sidney Powell to hand over 33,000 emails and you make the decision on your own with your lawyers to delete them, and then for good measure you use bleach bit and you acid wash the hard drives, and then you break up any mobile devices that might have such information, that sounds to me an awful lot like obstruction of justice.
That's exactly what it is. And Ms. Clinton herself, when she was a senator, voted to approve a new statute that makes that a criminal offense, punishable by, I think, 3 or 5 years in prison as part of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act.
Yeah. All right. So we got a lot of different investigations. What should happen with James Comey? What if he and Peter Strzok are involved in the drafting of this memo before the investigation is really even taken hold? What role did they play in this?
Well, Comey, Strzok, Page, Lisa Page, Andrew McCabe, and James Baker, who was the general counsel for the FBI, all have a role in this conspiracy to destroy President Trump and to make false statements to different institutions, including Congress, which is another felony, as do people in the Department of Justice National Security Division. In fact, I don't know if you caught this, but Sally Yates denied the Office of Inspector General for Department of Justice access to oversee the National Security Division during the time all of this was going on. And that's where Bruce Orr is involved in it. I mean, there are any number of people in DOJ, National Security, and the FBI that were part of this conspiracy to stop President Trump.
Do you really think something's going to happen here?
It certainly should. That much I'm sure of. Something certainly should happen.
Yeah.
And it all should be revealed to the public so they know exactly how dirty this was, and there should be some serious criminal prosecutions of very high-ranking people.
All right, we'll continue. Sidney Powell is our guest, attorney, author of the book License to Lie, Exposing Corruption in the Department of Justice. 800-941-SEAN is our number. You want to be a part of the program. We'll look at our pollsters who are going to be joining us. Kayleigh McEnany is stopping by today, and a lot of your calls. All right, as we continue, Sidney Powell is our guest, attorney, author of License to Lie, Exposing Corruption in the Department of Justice. You know, we'd like to believe, and I know many in the left-wing media have been saying, well, this is outrageous. Institutions like the FBI and Department of Justice are being, attacked routinely by people like Sean Hannity. I'm not attacking. I thank God for law enforcement. I thank God that when there's real justice under the law and equal justice under the law. I appreciate our are those of them that risk their lives in the intelligence community, as long as those powerful weapons aren't turned against the American people. There is a great distinction.
Most of the field agents are doing that job. Most of the field agents are doing the good work that we all need done. I think the main problems are at the top.
Who do you see as the biggest problems at the top, as you say?
Well, definitely Comey was. He was as political as he could be. Obviously, Strzok, Page, Andrew McCabe, who was number 2, whose wife got, I think, $700,000 from one of the Clinton PACs.
Yeah, that was the Terry McAuliffe connection, yeah.
Yes, and Mr. James Baker, who just stepped down as general counsel. I think they were all in it up to their eyeballs in terms of conspiring to try to keep Trump from being president.
But it is profound if you make a decision to exonerate in May of an election year, and it's profound if you do it before you investigate. And then it's profound also if there's a possibility that the dossier led to a potential FISA warrant. Do you think that happened?
Oh, yes. I think without a doubt that happened. And one of the other things I haven't heard anybody really talk about either is Judge Contreras, who took General Flynn's guilty plea, was a member of the FISA court, and he suddenly recused from the Flynn case. And nobody's been talking about that or digging into it, but we need to know if he's the judge who signed that FISA warrant and or what role he played in the whole thing.
Well, what would that mean if Hillary Clinton bought and paid for Fusion GPS Christopher Steele Russian propaganda document was used as a predicate for a FISA warrant when the information we know is bought and paid for by a political party?
If I were the judge sitting on a case like that, I would dismiss all of the indictments and shut down the Mueller investigation. It should never have happened.
And could a judge do that?
Yes, a judge could do that.
But it's not likely to happen because we know the judiciary is filled with, let's say, Clinton and Obama appointees or maybe even some Bush appointees that are not particularly favorable to this president.
Well, now Judge Emmett Sullivan, the judge who's one of the heroes in my book, License to Lie, is the judge in Michael Flynn's case.
Wow.
And he is the judge who appointed a special prosecutor to investigate the Department of Justice itself once he discovered the corrupted conviction of U.S. Senator Ted Stevens. So there are some good judges on the bench, and they are definitely
But what happens if Michael Flynn was literally pressured to give this guilty plea because the prosecutors were likely saying that we're going after your son if you don't?
The judge can let him withdraw his guilty plea if the entire investigation should never have happened. In fact, 2 guilty pleas were withdrawn in the Enron prosecution because of Andrew Weissman's overreaching, and Mr. Weissman is Mr. Mueller's right-hand man. Wow. The judges allowed David Duncan to withdraw his guilty plea. He was the Anderson partner who testified in the Arthur Anderson case against everyone, and also Richard Calger.
Tens of thousands of jobs were lost, 9-0 Supreme Court decision, 4 Merrill executives in jail, 5th Circuit Court of Appeals overturned. Great work,
yep.
and that's the lead appointment of Robert Mueller. Unbelievable. All right, Sydney, thank you. We appreciate it. 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. You ever see poor Jeff Lord or Kayleigh McEnany on CNN during an election year? Wow. It was 9-1, 10-1 on a given day. Quick break. Right back. She'll join us in studio straight ahead.
Do you believe that anything...
Recy Taylor died 10 days ago, just shy of her 98th birthday. She lived, as we all have lived, too many years in a culture broken by brutally powerful men. For too long, women have not been heard or believed if they dared to speak their truth to the power of those men. But their time is up. Their time is up. Their time is up. And I just hope that Recy Taylor died knowing that her truth, like the truth of so many other women who were tormented in those years, and even now tormented, goes marching on. It was somewhere in Rosa Parks' heart almost 11 years later when she made the decision to stay seated on that bus in Montgomery. And it's here with every woman who chooses to say, me too. And every man every man who chooses to listen.
All right, glad you're with us. 24 now till the top of the hour, 800-941. Sean, you want to be a part of the program. That was Oprah Winfrey from last night's Golden Globe Awards making her statement. Many now predicting, Oprah, she's definitely going to run for president. She'll take down Donald Trump. The real interesting thing to me is I remember a group of a lot of Hollywood people supporting Roman Polanski, a guy that gave Quaaludes and alcohol and raped a 13-year-old girl. And when he won the award, it was nothing but big, huge Hollywood praise. And just because some people are saying it, I'm not sure Hollywood buys it.
And the Oscar goes to Roman Polanski for The Pianist.
And the applause goes on for a long period of time. Prior to that, you had Michael Wolff actually out there saying that, his presidency won't succeed. And by the way, he's now going to be out because of the 25th Amendment. Oh, and by the way, I never talked to anybody in his cabinet. And I never talked to, the Mike Pence or anyone in his cabinet. But yet he's saying, everybody's saying all of these things. Anyway, here to help break it down, she knows how to fight in a big way. It's called the New American Revolution, the making of a populist movement. Kayleigh McEnany's back with us. I wrote the foreword for her book. Why do I always have such a hard time pronouncing your last name, McEnany?
It's a difficult one, but you got that twice in a row, so you're good.
And you recently got married. Congratulations to a baseball player.
That's right. Sean Gilmartin, love of my life. So
yeah, and he's a long-term reliever.
Yes, that's right.
Were you always a big baseball fan?
I was not. I was a football girl through and through.
Is
my
that
dad
right?
played. So, yeah, he played in college in the SEC. So I've been a football girl. Now
What school in the SEC?
Mississippi State.
Okay, so, but you're a sports person. You love
I'm a
sports.
sports person.
No, most people think if you're in professional sports, your life's easy. There's nothing easy about it. You're going from city to city to city to city, and you better perform because there's 1,000 guys behind you that want your job and want you dead.
That's right. And then you're moved down to AAA, and you're staying in, these back road cities, hotel rooms, not glamorous at all.
Right. That's why I kind of always admire Tim Tebow. He's like, you know what? I was a good baseball player. I'm going to give it a shot. But he's on like Greyhound buses and chartered buses, and he's, traveling for hours and hours and hours and no comfort. And he's doing it all because of the love of the sport. I want to talk to you about a number of things. I just heard, you see the reaction to Oprah from last night, and you heard Michael Wolff's comments. You actually wrote a column about Michael Wolff, and that and I know in certain ways he didn't tell the truth about me in his book. He said Kellyanne, she knew all day long Trump was going to lose. I know that's not true. I talked to her.
Yeah, it's a fraudulent book, no doubt about it. It's sleazy. It belongs in your supermarket with other tabloid headings. Because I can tell you this, I interviewed Jared Kushner for the book. Jared Kushner told me, he said on Election Day, this is going to be a Rust Belt Brexit. That is what Jared Kushner said. His data, Trump data, showed a victory. Michael Wolff claims no one was optimistic. Michael Wolff also claims that the folks in the room said that Donald Trump was horrified when he found out he was going to be president.
Not true.
Not true. I spoke to Ivanka Trump. She told me something never reported before. Donald Trump found out he was going to be president. He read his acceptance speech pre-planned, ripped it up because he saw crying Hillary voters and said, I'm going to rewrite this. I want to speak to all the people. Not the actions of someone who's horrified.
It's not just that. I spoke to him 3 times that day. I spoke to him before he ever saw the exit poll data, and I was very blunt. I called him on his cell phone at the time. He doesn't have one now, not to my knowledge. And I said, you're about to get really bad news. You got to listen to me. And then I told him the story about how in 2004, John Kerry was going to be the next president. And because the exit polls had Bush Cheney getting slaughtered. And Dick Cheney called this radio program at 5:35 that afternoon. Don Jr. ended up calling about, 5:50 that day. And Trump called at 5:30 that day. So, and I told him, you're going to get bad news, don't believe it. Then I spoke to him and I said, the odds are really high you're going to be the next president. That was my next call at about 7:30, 8 o'clock. Then I talked to him before anybody had made the call. I said, congratulations, Mr. President. My 3 calls with him that day.
And that reflects everything I know to be true. It reflects what Jared Kushner told me, that when the polls came out, the exit polls, the ones you're referring to, he said, these are brutal. And then they spent the day, their internal data people, saying our data's right, the exit polls are wrong, just as you said, Sean. And look, you've been ahead of the curve on the Trump presidency from the very beginning. Back when I was at CNN, I remember David Axelrod.
We got to talk about this. Go ahead.
We do. I remember David Axelrod saying to me after the third debate, God bless you. You have undying commitment, but you don't know the facts. And the facts are Donald Trump's going to lose.
I have a David Axelrod story. It was after Sarah Palin had her debate with Joe Biden. Ran into him at an airport, and I said, I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, so sorry you had a bad night. You okay? And ended up they won, but it was fairly inevitable. I guess that was back in the day in 2008. Let's talk about you on CNN. I'd watch you maybe occasionally with Jeff Lord, often you with about 8 Democrats attacking you. And that, I guess, that was fairness in CNN's mind.
I suppose so.
What was that like for you? Was that too hard for you, or you didn't care?
It was a pileup, and you occasionally sent me notes of encouragement, which were so appreciated, Sean, but it wasn't fair. It was an 8-on-1 pileup. I remember walking into CNN on election night. The mood was happy. There was all sorts of food that had been ordered, and they were pumped. Hillary Clinton was going to become president. Was there champagne? I actually believe there was.
Oh, man, but I guess that champagne got put aside. What was it like when you were there and it looked very likely Trump was going to win?
Oh, Jeff Lord and I sat up a little taller. Van Jones and Paul Begala to my left started to slump down in their chairs. And, man, you would have thought depression had hit CNN. They were just upset, tears, all sorts of things.
Were you on the set for This Is a White Lash?
I was. So sitting right by Van Jones, just to his left. I'd spoken right before. And, Van's a nice guy, but that comment was unfortunate.
What about the days you found yourself 8-on-1? Or like Jeff Lord, I used to text him. I said, say this. Because the whole focus would be, but now CNN has moved towards, we need to move towards the 25th Amendment. Do you think, as I do, that's a result of the failing, quote, Russia collusion narrative that just never materialized?
Absolutely. They were caught. We talk about the emperor with no clothes. No, the emperor with no clothes is the fact there's no Russian collusion. They've been caught. They have to come up with something new. And it's always the salacious, Sean. After every debate, here's CNN's focus, the birther movement. Mm-hmm. They're focusing on Donald Trump using the word bad hombres in the debate. It was always the salacious, always the gossipy, never the issues the American people cared about, the ones you talked about on your show night after night.
Let's talk about this journey you have had, because you're still very young. You've had all the success. You come on our TV show quite often. You wrote this book. What do you mean by the new American revolution and the making of a populist movement? Because I don't consider myself a populist. I consider myself a Reagan conservative. I'm not a nationalist populist. What I believed at the beginning of my career, which started, you probably weren't born 30 years ago, in radio, I believe today. I believe in less government intrusion into our lives, less regulation happening under Trump, lower taxes happening under Trump. I believe in borders to secure our country. I believe in, peace through strength, confronting evil in our time. I believe in all those things I believed in then. I don't believe he's a nationalist populist. He's governing as a conservative.
He's governing as a conservative, no doubt. But here's what I mean by that. Donald Trump responded to the call of the people, the pain of the people, all of the people. So those factory workers who I interviewed for the book, carrier workers, for the first time, you had folks, it was a mutiny against their union. You had folks defecting at record rates, not voting for Hillary Clinton because Donald Trump was the first conservative to barrel onto the scene saying, hey, NAFTA hurts people. Right. I'm going to change my view on this one point because it's hurting the people. So it's being responsive to the needs of the people.
But Reagan wasn't perfectly pure in conservative ideology on that either. You see that picture in the corner there?
I do.
That's John McNaughton's The Forgotten Men and Women. We've had 2 million new jobs. We have 2 million fewer people on food stamps. Look at Wall Street's record-breaking day after record-breaking day. You have the best labor participation we've had in 8 years. Consumer confidence, 17-year high. GDP higher than it's been under Obama in any one given year. What's going to happen next? Because the left only seems to want to destroy him.
Right, but they can't stop him because here's what's going to happen. Come February, Americans' paychecks grow. They're going to see it in their wallet. They're not going to believe the salacious CNN, MSNBC headlines that tax cuts are somehow toxic.
No, there is an audience for Trump hate and Trump conspiracy. It exists. They're fomenting hate every day.
Absolutely. It's hate It's negativity, but that doesn't win elections. What wins elections are Donald Trump speaking to that forgotten man and woman I'm looking at, sitting on that bench in that photo. I went out and I found that forgotten man and woman all across the country. Mom, Kim Copeland, lost her only son and husband to terrorism in Nice, France. She voted for Donald Trump. She said when Obama called her, it was the terrible call. It was like he didn't care. It was like he was out of touch and didn't care that she had just lost her son.
Let's talk about Oprah Winfrey and the Golden Globes yesterday. What was your thought? Would she ever run?
That sounded a lot like Hillary Clinton, right? Every woman deserves to be heard and believed, of course, was a line from Hillary Clinton. She may run with no success because those same tired talking points have been tried. They failed the last election.
Do you think that it is dangerous now that we've discovered a network of people that are paying other women to make allegations?
Absolutely dangerous. There were women paid to make allegations against Trump. Let me tell you this, Sean. I was sitting on a CNN set when one of these accusers said that Donald Trump kissed her on her cheek in front of her dad, and she said it was a very painful moment. There were a lot of tears both on her part and the CNN hosts. That accuser, I watched the cameras turn off, her face light up, and say, "Can I get a copy of this for my reel?" This was moments after she was crying on CNN set. It's dangerous. We have to have due process, yes.
People have had mortgages paid off. People have been offered $750,000. Apparently there's a network of money flow for women today to make accusations against Trump or other conservatives. Scary.
It's dangerous. We have to listen to the women, yes. But when you say we have to believe every accusation, that eliminates due process for the male, and that's not fair.
We'll take a break. We'll come back. More with Kayleigh McEnany. And as we continue, Kayleigh McEnany is with us. Her brand new book, The New American Revolution, The Making of a Populist Movement. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. By the way, you can get the book in bookstores everywhere, Amazon.com. We'll put it up and have it on Hannity.com. You're obviously like the next generation behind me. My question is, I know how I became a conservative. How did you become a conservative at a young age? There's the famous Churchill quote, if you're 20 and not a liberal, you don't have a heart. If you're 40 and not a conservative, you don't have a brain. Where did your conservatism grow out of?
Riding in my dad's truck, listening to talk radio, the great ones. You? Rush Limbaugh?
Yeah, you, Hannity, one of you old guys. Go ahead.
Laura Ingraham. That was my
And where'd you grow up?
Plant City, Florida, a little small strawberry town outside of Tampa. But talk about education. What I learned from you, Laura, Rush, 10 times over beats anything I learned at Oxford, Harvard, these Ivy League institutions.
You mean you went to Harvard and Oxford?
Yeah, but
okay, I didn't, obviously. So that is pretty amazing. And so what kind of person then was your dad?
My dad was a hard worker. He grew up with basically nothing, built a company, small business from the ground up, roofing and contracting company. And
sounds like a man. I did the same thing after I did all this restaurant work. I see your mom and your grandma with you today. Are you guys conservative, too? They're shaking their head. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have strict rules growing up?
I did. I had pretty strict rules, but I was still allowed to have fun. But yeah, discipline, rules, absolutely.
Yeah, no boys till you're 90. But you just got married. You just broke that rule. Anyway, the book is phenomenal. Congratulations. I have the honor of writing the foreword to this book. It's called The New American Revolution, The Making of a Populist Movement. Kayleigh McEnany is with us, and she's going to join us also tonight on Hannity on the Fox News Channel. Well, you make your generation proud. I think parents had to be proud of all of the challenges you had to face going, 8 and 9 versus you, or you and Jeff Lord, and you're dealing with people like David Axelrod and Van Jones and people that are actually fairly knowledgeable on what the left advocates. Not exactly truthful on CNN. I still call it fake news, but all the best in you. I guess you're going to be going on a book tour. You have a website or anything?
That's right. KayleighMcEnany.com, Twitter. That's probably the best place to find me.
All right, Kayleigh, good to see you. We'll see you tonight, 800-941-SEAN. When we come back, wide open telephones. It's the Sean Hannity Show.
And it's an extraordinary moment in time. And this is, I think not an exaggeration and not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable to say this is 25th Amendment kind of stuff. This is,
did anybody say that in the West Wing to you?
All the time.
25th Amendment. They would bring up the 25th Amendment?
Yes, actually they would say we're not sort of in the mid period. We're not at a 25th Amendment level yet. or they would.
It's alarming.
This is alarming in every way. And then this went on. Okay, this is a little 25th Amendment.
Sources describe the president in that Vanity Fair article as unraveling, increasingly unfocused, and consumed by dark moods. And so what's the likelihood, I think it's pretty remote, of that becoming the implementation of the 25th Amendment to the Constitution?
I started talking about the 25th Amendment 2 weeks into the Trump presidency when it had become painfully clear that by any previous behavioral standard applied to the presidency, Donald Trump was unfit to serve. The 25th Amendment allows for the removal of a president who is, quote, unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office.
I think not an exaggeration and not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable to say this is 25th Amendment kind of stuff. This is,
did anybody say that in the West Wing to you?
All the time.
25th Amendment. They would bring up the 25th Amendment?
Yes.
And continues to attack Hillary Clinton, calling her crooked Hillary over and over again. He is psychologically deranged, and I think they seriously need to think about removing him under the 25th Amendment to the Constitution if they don't choose to impeach him.
Well, I've been speaking out about the invocation of the 25th Amendment since early this year because I do think the president is not equipped to do the job.
All right, there you have it. Glad you are with us. News Roundup Information Overload Hour here at the Sean Hannity Show. So we go from Russia collusion then to if anybody dares question the tactics or the procedures or the level of corruption or the double standard in the application of the rule of law, you are against law enforcement. Well, now the talking point is one thing and one thing only, the 25th Amendment. You notice they all go in sync, and the timing is unbelievable. Very fascinating how, if you look at what Michael Wolff said in a BBC radio interview on Saturday, I think one of the interesting effects of the book so far is it's clear the emperor has no clothes effect, and that the story I have told to present this presidency in such a way that it says he can't do his job. The emperor has no clothes. And suddenly everywhere people are going, oh, my God, it's true. He has no clothes. That's the background to the perception and understanding that will finally end this presidency. Are we not supposed to believe, in view of all of the factual errors in the book that even I personally know about, that this is true in any way and that Michael Wolff doesn't have an agenda? Now, the president has fired back. We mentioned earlier in the program today about Steve Bannon now pulling back on his comments. But it is interesting. The holy grail of political polling, the Real Clear Politics average, now has the president over 40%. And if you look at some of the numbers, some have him at 42, 43, 41, 40%, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, joining us to put a fine point on all of this, John McLaughlin, pollster, founder of McLaughlin and Associates. Doug Schoen is a pollster, author, political analyst for the Fox News Channel. Thank you both for being with us. Appreciate you being here.
Happy New Year, Sean.
And I think if you look by every objective measure, what last year looked like, well, looked pretty good for the president in terms of, 2 million fewer people on food stamps. We have the lowest unemployment rate we've had in however many years. We see the economy is roaring back. The stock market literally making new records every single day. We're getting the biggest boost we've ever had in terms of the economy, especially after 8 years of stagnation under President Obama. And I don't think this is at all in sync with what the public is thinking. Doug Schoen.
Yeah, if the White House were as effective in delivering talking points as you just were, and if the president was as focused on that message as you were, I think his approval would be higher still. Look, the president, unfortunately, has gotten sidetracked by a series of extraneous issues. And I believe that if he reaches out a bit and makes it clear that he's willing to do deals on immigration and infrastructure, as he has done tentatively, his numbers can go up more. But what happens is the culture is now a gotcha culture, and all we spend our time on is books and articles and interviews. And you know what? None of that matters to ordinary people. I think my friend John McLaughlin would agree that the president and indeed the body politic would do better with a focus on real results rather than these extraneous topics.
Yeah, I agree. But apparently the left found their savior at the Golden Globes last night. And her name is Oprah Winfrey, John McLaughlin. But I would imagine, knowing the economy as well as I do, and opening up of all drilling and Anwar and off the shores of the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Gulf Coast. And fracking is now going to move forward. The coal industry has been saved. That probably, on top of the 2 million jobs created in 1 year, it's going to be 4, 5, or 6 by the end of this year, by the time we get to the ballot box in November.
Right, and I agree with Doug. That's what we should be talking about. And as you know, by the way, I'm in that book, that Wolf book. Somebody mentioned me in that book. He said at some point, he says, in fact, one of the Trump campaign pollsters, John McLaughlin, had begun to suggest within the past week or so, this is before the election, that some key state numbers heretofore dismal might actually be changing to Trump's advantage. So the things I used to talk about with you and Doug in 2016 that you knew were true, that we thought we could win, and in fact, there's lots of stuff. I mean, there's lots of emails among Bannon, myself, Jared Kushner, people in the campaign, Kellyanne, et cetera.
By the way, he writes in the book that Kellyanne on Election Day never thought Trump could win. I know for a fact that's not true because I talked to her that day.
Exactly. So I was on your show saying he was going to win, and people were discounting us, and you knew what the real numbers were because we would tell you, because I couldn't lie to you. I couldn't lie to Doug. It's like, this is what it is. And I was going on the show saying, in fact, the Sunday night before the election, Jared Kushner got Brad Parscale and myself on the phone. We went over the analytics. We went over all the polls, and Brad was certain we were going to win for the analytics. And I said, we can win as long as we win the turnout on Tuesday, which we did. The president, to his credit, he was his own strategist. If you think you're going to lose, you don't take your own plane and fly to 5 or 6 states every day until midnight, from dawn until midnight, barnstorming the country, particularly in states where they said we couldn't win because you had an electoral lock. We were saying we could win, and Trump was betting on it. And as I told him a year ago in December, it's like, well, we didn't make him pay for a landslide, but we won. And fortunately, 78,000 votes with 10,000 in Michigan, 22,000 in Wisconsin, 46,000 in Pennsylvania. Out of 139 million votes, we won an electoral majority, and we always played for that, and that's what we thought we were going to win. So the part about the book about that they didn't think they could win, totally erroneous, totally fabricated. And your point is that, look, the president is succeeding. His policies are working. The economy is booming. America's stronger. We're facing down our enemies. There's a lot of good substance going on that's really good, and there is nothing to the Russian collusion. That was a myth, a phony thing. If anything, the Clintons are in trouble because of their Clinton Foundation activity, as well as the emails and all
the dossier, and also the fix was in with Comey. I mean, the fact that was rigged, just like they rigged the primary against poor Bernie. I mean, this is now this to me is going to be the bigger story of the year. And
right. So what do you do? When you're in trouble, you substitute, divert, and counter. They are running a diversion right now with this book instead of going after Clinton.
Well, yeah, of course. They haven't followed any of that from the beginning. But, we saw last week, Doug, if I'm Hillary Clinton, I'm not happy that the Department of Justice is investigating the Clinton Foundation, especially knowing what we now know. I'm not happy that the dossier has now been acknowledged to have been paid for by her and by the DNC she was running. If
With
I'm
some
her,
Republican involvement too, Sean, I might add.
Well, the Republicans started it, but to be fair, Christopher Steele was not involved until it was taken over by Hillary and the DNC.
And by the way, didn't the Clinton campaign pay for the dossier?
They paid for it after a year of denying it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I will say this:
follow the money.
Sean, I've been in campaigns for a long time, and I'm certain John will agree with this one. No campaign spends $13.5 million on, quote, opposition research without the candidate knowing where, when, and how the money is being spent. It doesn't happen. The idea that, as Hillary said, we just spent the money through our lawyers. Yeah, it was a normal expenditure. That's just a load of hooey. The other thing, Sean, which you haven't mentioned, but I think bears mentioning, is we now know that Huma Abedin violated the law, I think it's fair to say, by downloading both emails that were secure along with passwords to her then husband's email account. I think there were 5 classified emails, if I remember correctly. I think that is something also that bears attention.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know crimes were committed. How does James Comey and a pro-Hillary, anti-Trump guy by the name of Peter Strzok, and probably others high up within the FBI, how do they exonerate before investigating Doug Schoen?
Well,
that's not exactly normal protocol, is it?
Well, here's what I would say. I had always believed that the FBI itself was, removed from politics. When I read about how the Comey report that he presented on the emails was edited, my heart sank. My heart sank for the country because I just said to myself, something about this just doesn't seem right.
All right, stay right there. More with John McLaughlin and Doug Schoen, 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. And as we continue with pollsters Doug Schoen and John McLaughlin, there's an article out today, John. It says, will Democrats run on impeachment in 2018 midterms? Is that what they're going to say? We have Maxine Waters every day. Impeach 45, impeach 45. Reclaiming my time.
Why would you impeach a successful president? And I tell you, the thing that's really bugging them, I mean, you saw our December survey. Right before Christmas, we released a survey where we said, do you believe the media is biased against President Donald Trump? 53% of all voters said yes, only 37% no, 85% of Republicans, 55% of independents, and only 23%, but 23% of Democrats. They said the media is biased. There was another question where we said, are you more likely to believe all the news is reported in the mainstream national media or not believe everything reported by the mainstream national media? Only 14% said they believe the news. 77% said they don't believe everything, which means that the media is running down the president because they have a major credibility problem. So all this impeachment stuff, what are they going to impeach him for? He hasn't done anything wrong. And if anything, they don't want to talk about his success on the economy, on national security, on securing the borders that reduces illegal immigration. They anything but talk about the facts about what a great president is and what his accomplishments are.
Well, I mean, Doug, here's the thing. I mean, look, you always felt, and I think in some ways we're actually proven right, that impeachment backfired against the Republicans in 98.
Absolutely.
Does it backfire in this case? Because look, I think if you look objectively at 2017, I mean, Donald Trump has been attacked more than any president in the history of this country. Is there a backlash to all of that?
Well, if the Democrats run on impeachment, they will not win the House or the Senate. I can say that. They can develop and should develop a narrative around issues about an agenda on job creation, wages, and the like. Infrastructure, immigration. There is an alternative case to be made. That's how you win the House. And they can disagree with the president. They should. But to engage just in personal invective may make the base happy, but it will not win the midterm elections.
What do you both predict? Because you guys have been my pollsters now for years on this program. What's going to happen in 2018? Democrats think they got a real shot at the House and the Senate. I don't see the Senate in any way, shape, manner, or form. What do you guys think? John McLaughlin.
Well, I think the Democrats know that the Republicans have an only 24-seat majority. Historically, in a midterm, you lose 32 seats. So they're really going after the House. And I agree with you. Most of the states that are up in the Senate are states, there's 10 states Donald Trump won that Democrat senators are sitting in. So the Democrats will not cooperate with us on anything or give us a single vote because as the president succeeds, we keep our majorities. The Republicans in the House need to set a contract. Like you had a platform for Republicans.
That was in 2013. I had the platform. I said, all right, create a new contract with America. I called it the Conservative Solutions Caucus.
They need to do that again on majority popular issues and go after the Democrats and make them stand up and vote on things that the majority people agree with, like workfare, like securing the borders.
What about infrastructure? It seems everyone's obsessed with infrastructure and public-private partnerships.
That's a popular thing, but they're not going to give us any votes.
All right. Does Oprah Winfrey really throw herself into the 2020 race or no, Doug Schoen?
I don't think so. I think this is one of those things that in its conception sounds a lot better than it would be in reality. So
you don't think she'd be a good candidate?
I don't think she would.
Who wins the midterms?
Hold it. I got one, Sean. If she moves for the presidency, she will lose billions of dollars. Because just like, I worked for Arnold and I worked for Donald when Donald was thinking of it in 2011.
Yeah.
The minute she says she's running for president, she has to give up all her entertainment shows, all the things that make her.
So it would happen last minute. All right, who's going to win the midterms? John McLaughlin, quick.
The Republicans should keep both the House and the Senate. They will keep the Senate. The House is more up for grabs, but we should be able to win it.
Doug?
I think the House will be very close, a couple of seats either way, and the Senate will stay Republican.
I appreciate both of you. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. When we come back, wide open telephone straight ahead on the Sean Hannity Show.
Barack Obama in full Sunday meeting mode, preaching to a choir which sang a chorus of amens. The first African-American president challenging Democrats to make history again.
This was President Obama at his best.
12 years to the day he burst on the national scene. Two-term President Barack Obama gives his political valedictory. Grateful, emotional at the end, thanking the American people for picking him up when he was down. Passing the baton, as he said, to Hillary Clinton. Remarkably generous speech for a president to give.
The roar is deafening here in this arena. President Obama delivering a speech, a powerful arc, embracing hope and optimism, a passionate endorsement of Hillary Rodham Clinton, and at times an artful takedown of Donald Trump.
He reminded this party of what it is that we were about, and it was a beautiful act of leadership for the country, but also for the people in this room.
But I think he reached beyond the room.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody can talk about America like Barack Obama, aside from maybe Ronald Reagan.
It is tempting to say at this time we will not see his kind again. Strip away politics from that statement for obvious reasons yet, but for all the other attributes, for the collection of things that he is, including but not limited to rhetorical skill.
You saw people weeping as he took the stage. You saw the standing ovation for him even at our outdoor set outside the arena, people just watching on the screens we had there. There's nothing else like him in American politics. There never has been before.
Well, it's pretty well known I've always gone for this guy. I've always liked the way he speaks about our country. From the time I first heard him in 2004 and up in Boston at the convention. But this guy tonight was something else, like he was when we... So I thought it was a farewell address, guys, as well as an endorsement of Hillary Clinton. A wonderful farewell address while everyone's paying attention. And Hillary Clinton is now going to have to play catch-up tomorrow night. So it's an interesting night and a wonderful night, I thought.
I think it's one of the most extraordinary political speeches ever given by anyone at any time. It was just extraordinary. It was a master class in American character, in American optimism. Speech was aimed squarely at the middle of the electorate, as all of these speeches were tonight. Yep. Just an extraordinary performance by the President of the United States of America.
Extraordinary, and invoking the framers' thoughts to form a more perfect union. The most optimistic speech, the most generous speech politically, having covered the campaign 8 years ago. His gift is unique. I don't think we've ever had a president, save Lincoln, who is as great a speechwriter as this man.
To say I hope he fails is very unpatriotic as far as I'm concerned.
Saying I want Obama to fail is saying essentially at one of the most precarious times in our nation's history, you want the country to fail, isn't it?
Sources describe the president in that Vanity Fair article as unraveling, increasingly unfocused, and consumed by dark moods. And so what's the likelihood, I think it's pretty remote, of that becoming the implementation of the 25th Amendment to the Constitution?
I started talking about the 25th Amendment 2 weeks into the Trump presidency, when it had become painfully clear that by any previous behavioral standard applied to the presidency, Donald Trump was unfit to serve.
I think not an exaggeration and not unreasonable. And it's not unreasonable to say this is 25th Amendment kind of stuff. This is...
did anybody say that in the West Wing to you?
All the time.
25th Amendment. They would bring up the 25th Amendment?
Yes.
And continues to attack Hillary Clinton, calling her crooked Hillary over and over again. He is psychologically deranged, and I think they seriously need to think about removing him under the 25th Amendment to the Constitution if they don't choose to impeach him.
Well, I've been speaking out about the invocation of the 25th Amendment since early this year, because I do think the president is not equipped to do the job.
You know, like, you listen to the media love of Obama. Doesn't it just take your breath away? Oh, the 25th Amendment, for crying out loud. No, it's Joyless Behar. Oh, it's unpatriotic to criticize President Obama reacting to Rush saying, I hope he fails. Michael Wolff and company, too. Democrats and media bringing up the 25th Amendment, never nonstop. All right, as promised, we're going to get to our busy telephones. Let's say hi to Willie in Missouri. Willie, hi, how are you? And Happy New Year, sir.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, Sean. I'm a big fan. And the point I wanted to make is the media, especially Hollywood, and then the people on the liberal news, I don't believe that they even care two whits about these women claiming sexual harassment, because Herman Cain and now Roy Moore, the minute they're out of the race, everything disappears. Nobody's saying nothing.
You know, it's so true. I mean, I go back to Herman Cain. Herman Cain was really getting traction in his primary race for president, and all these allegations come across. And then all of a sudden, Herman doesn't have the money, as he explains it. He gets out of it. Then you never hear another word again. It was just a political hunt, you know, and I'm going to tell you something. Look, I did like what Oprah said in some regards. I don't like people that prey on innocent other people. Nobody should. But with that said, I don't believe Hollywood's going to change. I don't think they're going to stop making their movies that appeal to the lowest common denominator. The only thing that's going to happen, I think, is Hollywood, their heyday is probably over. And, you know, we had a foray last year into the movie business with Let There Be Light. I can tell you right now what I believe. I believe you're going to see a lot more independent films coming out, because there's so many platforms that are now going to be looking for content. And that's content that's going to reach real Americans. And that's Red America. And that's content that doesn't contradict their values, doesn't insult them. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that, especially Netflix and everything else.
Yep, I totally agree.
All right. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. All right. Tracy is in Katy, Texas. Tracy, I'm going to put you on with Verlin in Chicago. Tracy, say hi to Verlin. Verlin, say hi to Tracy. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing, Tracy?
What's happening?
And Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Well, you know, the reason why I called was because the liberals will sink to no level. They will sink to the lowest common denominator to try to dish some dirt out on Trump. This guy, I looked at him on all the talk shows where he was on Meet the Press and everything else. You can see he was lying. How do you just knock on the door, somebody lets you in, you get to sit on the couch and listen to casual conversation of people just dishing out dirt on the president? I mean, this guy is a total liar. He couldn't answer the questions. He said he's sitting down on the couch looking at it as the way we would look at it. That's the way that he's writing his book, from a bystander's point of view. This guy is a total dirtbag.
I think you guys may end up agreeing, Tracy.
No, I don't agree at all. For one thing, you know, I realize it's really funny when it's against a Republican or when it's for a Republican. You know, the common denominator that Trump has been using is racism.
There are wait a minute, hang on one second. There are facts in this. There's so-called There's so-called facts in this book. And Wolf himself even admits he never talked to a single person in the cabinet, and that he now is out there saying Trump is not going to succeed, and my book is going to be the end of Trump. And everybody in the White House talks about the 25th Amendment. Well, you know, Tracy, I'm somebody that knows nobody has ever talked about that I know of, ever.
But, Sean, here's the thing, though. See, you can't have it both ways. The Republicans can't go, this book is trash and everything he says is a lie, but then trash Bannon. See, you either trash and Bannon because Bannon said this, or you trash and Bannon. Why? If Bannon didn't betray, matter of fact, Bannon even apologized because he did say what he said. So the book clearly couldn't. He went in his apology.
He said, no, Donald Jr. is a patriot, which is different from what Michael Wolff claims he said in the book. For example, he writes about Kellyanne Conway thinking that Trump was going to lose that. That's not true. Some things he wrote about me are not true. I don't write down questions to interviews. I write words, thoughts in scribble that nobody could read anyway.
Yeah, but it is treasonous, and
no, it's not treason. Right, what evidence is there of treason? You're going to make an accusation? What evidence is there?
All right, what evidence?
Yeah, what evidence?
Everybody listening to me right now.
What evidence?
Hillary, can you let me talk?
Tell me the evidence.
Everybody listening to me right now can hate Hillary Clinton. But you know what? The wife of a governor, the wife of a president.
All right, stop. All right, stop. I don't want her resume. What evidence of treason exists? None. Tell me what evidence you have.
Jared Kushner talking to WikiLeaks. The fact that they had that meeting.
There's no evidence. There's no evidence at all that Jared Kushner talked to WikiLeaks. And by the way, Julian Assange released it and said to me in numerous interviews that there's no state release of where this information came from. What part of, if you're going to quote Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, at least do it accurately.
Well, I will quote this. There was a meeting in the White House, in Trump Tower, about how to dish dirt on Hillary. The fact that you had Russians and Americans attacking
and Hillary Clinton paid for Russian lies and propaganda. How do you respond to that?
We're talking about John Jr. When you're talking about Clinton, you love.
It's not John. All right, Berlin, reply. Go ahead.
Listen, you're right. I agree with you on one thing. There's a lot of people on the telephone that can't stand Hillary Clinton, and I'm one of them. Hillary Clinton is the one that did collusion. Hillary Clinton was the one that sold off 20% of our uranium. Hillary Clinton is the one that's on record, doing all of the things that you accusing Donald Trump of treason. But yet you would take up for Hillary Clinton, the true racist, the true she-devil in this whole collusion mess. You'll take up for her, but try to dish it on Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, not one iota has been proven about any collusion on Ronald Trump. Not one at all. Mueller has looked at it. Comey has looked at it, and nothing has been proven. But yet you hate Donald Trump that much. You have that much Donald Trump derangement syndrome that you will be stuck on Donald Trump instead of the real culprits, which is Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation.
Last word. We're going to give Berlin the last word today. Berlin, you've come around a lot since I first got to know you. I got to tell you that. You've come around a long way. Proud of you.
Thanks, Trump. I'm sorry, I'm about to call you Donald Trump. Thanks, John. I've been waiting for a guy like this to be president for a long time. And I just got one request. Either when you go to break or when you come back from break.
Okay.
Can you ask Jason to play Dirk Bentley somewhere on the beach?
Yeah, we're good. We'll add that to the mix. No problem. Right. No problem at all. We take musical requests, too. Ray in Los Angeles, California on KEIB. What's happening, Ray? How are you? Happy New Year.
I'm fine. Happy New Year. How are you today?
I'm good, sir. What's going on?
It's an honor to speak to you.
My honor, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to touch bases. Do you guys have any idea what's happening here in California with the gas tax?
Yeah, how much is it now?
Well, it's went up 12 cents a gallon for last year, and then it's going to top out at 86 cents per gallon and $175 more for registration. On top of that, Jerry Brown wants to charge us per mile that we drive.
Yeah, that's been now floated forever, as if you're not paying. Look, you pay a 13.5 state income tax bill. You pay some of the highest property taxes, depending where you live in Los Angeles or Northern California. You've got one of the highest expenses of living. You have all the other taxes that, you add up. And once you add your federal income tax to it, if you're in a top rate, you're paying 65 cents a dollar going to government before you get paid. And then when you die, I'm not sure does California have an estate tax like New York has a 10% estate tax? They'll tax you again. You know what a great question is? How is it possible that states like Florida and Texas, they don't have any state income tax? And their infrastructure seems better than it is in New York, where everything's broken down and dilapidated and rickety and falling apart.
Los Angeles streets are crumbling as we speak.
Yeah.
Now, for 2018, the average family for this gas tax is going to cost them $779.20